Let me introduce to you Eric Cooper.
Good afternoon. You see, I ski. So when I got an invitation to come to the Green Mountains, I had to come. I love this area. I love what it stands for. I love the fact that, I, for one, will always live free or die. I love for the fact that from Vermont, so much knowledge is transmitted to the nation. So when I got this gift to attend here from Provost Al, of course I said yes because of the exchanges of emails that we had, busy schedule, and the president of a fairly large organization, and I travel all over the place. I live out of a suitcase, you see. And I enjoy traveling because I enjoy meeting leaders of today and leaders of tomorrow. And as I scan this room and I see the people who are here and your faces of doubt and strength and some of it wisdom, I see that we all are seeking that potential, that gift, that God-given gift that has been presented to us all. So Al, thank you for this invitation, and it's a pleasure to be here. Madam Superintendent, Acting President Jim, there is no more beautiful campus than what I've seen at SDC. It's just beautiful. There is space. One of the students today over lunch said, I like this because it opens up my mind. I'm paraphrasing. It gives me the space to breathe. So I'm breathing. And I'm thinking. And as an African American who grew up with many challenges in the community where I lived, Peekskill, New York, probably no one knows where Peekskill, New York is. Few people do. Interesting little dusty community outside New York City, you see, and I was one of the African American students that were there. I would say there were about 50% of us were black, are black. And I went through school and, I was on a football team, I was a wrestler, I did all the things. School for me was about how can I have fun? What can I do that enables me to have fun? You see, I was not a good student. In fact, I was a lousy student. In fact, my SAT scores are slightly better than former George W. Bush. Slightly. Not much, but slightly. But since I grew up with a family that was struggling with poverty, I couldn't get into Yale University. I could only get into one school that would accept me. My guidance counselor did not believe in me at all. She was just trying to push me out of school. Go, she said to my mother, Mrs. Cooper, find a job for Eric, that's what he needs. Have him work in the Fleischmann factory down the street. That will enable him to really succeed. My mother said, no. Well, she didn't say no, she said, hell no. My son's going to college. So they pushed me out with about a 70 average. You need to know this because this is an introduction about me. This is something that I hope resonates with many of you, all of you, in fact, in terms of experience that you may have or will have or have had. I was pushed out and I could only get into one school, and it was Dutchess Community College in Poughkeepsie, New York. What a great school that was. So my first semester I arrived right out, I'm at college, I'm on a university with no clue of how to proceed. My background was sufficient that I did very well my first semester. I'm being sarcastic. I got an 8.0 out of 4Q. The only course I did well in was music. See, I was a musician. I played bass clarinet. I wanted to be Eric Dolphy. For those who know, one brother here who knows who Eric Dolphy is. I got kicked out. I got kicked out with a group. We rented this house, and the landlord came in one day. We were having a water fight, and we were all dressed in raincoats, and the water was flowing all over the place. I was not a student. I had no idea. But I did have a biology teacher. His name was Mr. Barnett, who just happened to be white. And he believed in me, fervently, stood up for me in front of the dean. And I heard him say to me one time, I believe in Eric, to the dean, he said. And he had the acting president up there. I believe in Eric. I reiterate, he has the skills. And I said, reiterate, what a great word. Went back to the Webster Dictionary and I tried to figure out what that word, and that spark triggered a love and vocabulary. You see, even though my parents were somewhat educated, They were not succeeding that well because of the time that they grew up in. Mr. Barnett did not give up on me. And neither did an African-American psychology professor I had at Dutchess, who did not give up on me. And those two teachers changed my trajectory in terms of achievement and in life. They believed in me. And that's going to be a central theme that I'm going to be talking to you about during my brief comments here today. So it took me about 5 semesters to get out of Dutchess Community College. You need to know this. 5 semesters, supposed to take you 4. And I went to this place called the Universidad de las Americas in the Ciudad de México, cuando yo puedo hablar en español. I went there for other reasons as well, because of what, you can do in Mexico. Nervous laugh. I had a lot of fun in Mexico. But I had teachers that were awesome. For those of you who are old enough, Eric Fromm was my psychology teacher. The Art of Loving, Eric Fromm. Some of you guys, most of you guys are too young, but go read The Art of Loving by Eric Fromm. Ivan Ilyich, The Deschooling of Society, was one of my professors. I began to get a spark, a trigger, and guess what? I discovered I loved working with rats. So I got into experimental psychology, and I loved working with rats because one of my psychology courses said the rat brain is closest to the human brain. Not the monkey brain, the rat brain. And I figured if I could learn how to control these rats in terms of their behaviors, I could begin to control the other rats who were humans that were arguing against the needs of children that I really wanted to support, and that is all kids. So I got out of Mexico City because my mother would run into this guidance counselor, and she always asked, "How's Eric doing?" When first we asked her college, Dutchess Community College, the guidance counselor turned to a friend of hers and said, "Well, anyone can get into a 2-year school." My mother told me this story. Then when my mother told her that I was at the Universidad de las Americas in Ciudad de Mexico, she turned to a friend, a guidance counselor, and said, "Well, anyone can get into a school outside the country." So I decided I was a football player. I decided I was going to Wagner College on Staten Island to try to play football, which I did for a semester. But then I found the City University of New York, where I could go for free, once I established residence. Richmond College was called back then, to the University of New York. But I also went there because I wanted to major in psychology. I wanted to understand behavior. I wanted to understand operant conditioning. I wanted to understand what makes us tick and how do we think. I loved B.F. Skinner, behavior modification. Now we're finding that B.F. Skinner was right. What was wrong is that how people interpreted his theories of behavior modification focused more on the negative than on the positive. Any of you who are part of Weight Watchers, you understand Skinner's theories are being applied because he uses behavior modification. It's all there. It's all there. So I got in, I called my parents and I said, "Guess what, Mom, Dad? I got into Richmond College and I got a scholarship." I like to BS a lot. It built me up. It made me feel good about myself. Well, I graduated, and then I asked my mother, where did my guidance counselor get her master's? And my mother said, Columbia University's Teachers College. And I said, "Mom, that's where I'm going." Now, I did not have the grades. All of a sudden, my grades in psychology went up to 3.0. By the way, guys, from 0.80 to 3.0. Do you get my drift? It can change if you put in the effort. So I had to go there and had to take something called, and those who are old enough, I don't know if they give it anymore, it's called the Miller Analogies Test. Oh my God, 21 years old, in New York City, loving jazz, staying up late at night, having to take this test, and the first question I got was, crewing is to the Charles as boating is to, and I said, well, I know Charles. Crewing must mean a crew cut. You see, I lacked the background knowledge. I lacked the background knowledge sufficient for comprehension. It wasn't a lack of intelligence. I was underexposed to vocabulary. I was taught vocabulary as memorization of separate words without the context, the meaning. Words should be viewed as concepts. I got the worst MAT scores ever gotten in the history of Vermont University. The worst, and I was told that. So I could not get in as a matriculated student. I could only come in as a non-matriculated student. People were telling me you can't do it. My mother said, don't do this to yourself. You got your BA, this is great. But it was insufficient. I said, I am going to do this because, damn it, my guidance counselor got her degree here, and I'm going to make sure I succeed. I ran into a professor. His name was Frizziani, very famous Italian professor, who learned to love me, and I learned to love him. He was always there for me. Always there for me. He believed in me. He believed in me so much that I began to believe in myself. I internalized the belief that he was projecting on me. I still didn't think. I thought I was pulling the wool over the eyes of the professors when I got a good grade or not. But he believed in me. And Dorothy Strickland believed in me, an African-American professor. And Linda Darling Hammond believed in me. I graduated. Then I asked my mother, did that woman get a doctorate? And she said no. I said, well, Mom, I'm going to be the first in the family to get a doctorate. My mother said, don't do that to yourself, Eric. Please don't do that to yourself. You've succeeded so far. You don't want to fail. But here's the point, guys. It is only through failure that we learn. In our society, we're taught that you have to succeed. But we have got to create an environment that allows failure to emerge. Because failure can be motivating if there are the structures and supports to bring kids along. Failure is key to learning. Learning is discovery and learning through failure. I got my doctorate. I could not wait till my mother ran into that guidance counselor. And she did, and she said, guess what? After the question was asked, how is Eric doing? And she said, Yerlin Shumate Cooper said, my mother said, he got a doctorate from Columbia University. And you know what the guidance counselor said? I always knew Eric had it in him. So why did you tell me, Mrs. Blank, blank, blank? Because I don't want you to stereotype, because part of my presentation. Look, I'm honored to be here as part of Look Within, See Beyond, Stories of Empowerment and Change lecture series, and truly honored to be the first of this inaugural address. Here's the point where I'm going to be going here. I was researching, I was thinking about what could I do? What could I do to reach you, knowing that many of you were students? What could I do that would say something that might resonate, a word or a phrase? I've seen some of you writing. That's good because I taught for 7 years at Columbia. And I was, people, when the students would walk in and I would walk in front of them, they would always say, oh, Dr. Cooper's here, or Eric. Buckle up. Because what I'm saying to you is that each of you, every single one of you, if you have not found it yet, you have got to discover your passion, your love for something. And that learning and applying that passion enables you to, in any circumstance, never to be bored again in your life. Never to have to yawn again when you're involved in learning because you are accessing what you can do for deep learning. Now here's a challenge. The title of my presentation today is Poverty is Not Destiny. It doesn't have to be. But sadly, for too many Americans, white, black, Asian, Native American, Hispanic, poverty often is destiny. My premise will be to offset that particular degree. In introducing this topic, I thought about, well, where could I go? Where could I start? And so I decided to start with the gospel